think I would be a little more considerate and I would listen more than I do and try to be more helpful than I am.
Well, I believe I would wait until I was older to get married and have my education first. I was 15 when we married, and Ronnie was 19. So I think we were a little young and had no education. I didn't even have my high school education.
So I think when we first got married, I was pretty traditional in male-female roles and I wasn't very helpful husband. I kind of had, even though Rebecca was working and I was working and she was working just as many hours as I was, I still had these old archaic kind of expectations when we first got married, kind of coming home, she's going to cook and clean. And I think thus, because of that, it took me several years to realize how gifted Rebecca was. I would say be very, very open to the giftedness of your spouse and look for those strong points and let your spouse lead in the areas where they are strong.
I would probably have not let go of my family ties, but I think for a while there, I think Tim probably felt in competition with my father because I had such great respect for my father. I think it took me for a while to realize we're starting on a venture, us two, our own adventure. It's not necessarily an extension of my family's adventure or his family's adventure. We're starting our own adventure.
I would say without a doubt, I think we're going through the hardest part of our...
Oh, yeah.
For me, I think because of just the stress of coming back after being missionaries for 27 years and coming back and being so bombarded with this culture and both of us working, both of us doing ministry, and Rebecca finishing her master's degree and then taking care of her elderly parents. I think too, when our oldest, Elizabeth, went to college, and not so much in our marriage, but as a family, it changed the dynamics of our family. I mean, we adjusted like all families do, but that first, sending off our first child across the ocean to come back here to college was...
We kind of all went into mourning.
I think the first few years getting used to each other and trying to understand each other's needs and wants and that type of thing. I think that maybe here in the later years with us losing our son Chandler, that's been pretty tough on us. And we're slowly learning to deal with that. It's all like a learning process again. Listen to each other. Listen to what each other said, and be considerate and I think that's one of the big deals is people just don't listen to each other what they're saying.
Just make sure you really know how to resolve conflict. Just be practiced. Go to counseling, premarital counseling, or even afterwards to make sure that conflict resolution is something you know.
I would want someone who was a Christian and not only in name, but that they walk the walk and talk the talk, that they really live that life. And if you don't have God in your marriage, then it's real hard to stay married.
Okay.
The times that we were walking with God were the best times of our marriage.
I'd probably look for somebody like my wife, like Susan. she's considerate and she's very understanding of me, tries to be, and I'm a good challenge for her. I don't know what a good one would be, but you know, if you love each other and it happens, it happens.
Well, I hope not, because sometimes you can't have sex, but, you know, it's certainly important, especially when you're young. But you have to love your spouse regardless, because sometimes it comes to the point where you can't have sex, or, you know, somebody doesn't function like they ought to, so you just have to, you know, love them anyway. So it's important, but it's not the only thing.
And I would say that if there's not a medical reason, that sexual relationship can't happen, then I would say it would be very, very
There's something
difficult,
wrong.
something
Yeah.
wrong,
Something's
and that
wrong, yeah.
it would not, and I think in our books, would not be a successful marriage. It's like, I think when you're intimate in your conversation and in your ministry and in your going the same direction, that I think there's more.
There's more points of interest, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't
Right,
know.
and so that
it's
is,
easier.
becomes a natural one of those.
Right.
And I would even say times that we've had stress in our marriage where we've been busy, and we've neglected that aspect. Coming back to that helps in all those other areas.
Yeah.
It brings us back together.
Well, I was 16 when our son was born, so I was really young, and that was tough because we didn't have any money, and you know, we had to be creative about ways to feed him. We'd give him vegetable soup, and we'd eat popcorn. I wouldn't have changed it because we grew up together, and then Heather came along when I was 19, and she was such a joy that, you know, that made it all special. But it does affect your marriage because you have less time to spend with your spouse. So it does have an effect on it, but it's the joy is a whole lot more than the good by far outweighs the bad.
I think it brought us closer together. I think that we enjoyed our children, especially the teen years. We had more fun with them at that time of our life. And we were young when we got married, and they kept us young, you know, all those years. Men and women should be very helpful to each other and help each other. And if they work, you be helpful to her. And or if you both work, well, same deal. And it's a 50-50 deal. And just listen and love each other. You know, you think the grass is going to be greener somewhere else, and it never really is. You got the greenest grass right where you're at.
And just being willing to go the extra mile, and to not be so prideful, because it's really easy to either play martyr or to demand your rights or something. And I think when you feel a teamship between the two of you, it's not 50-50, you know, it's 100% and 100%. You know, even when Tim talks about, you know, he wasn't good about washing dishes or helping in the kitchen. Well, I didn't go change the oil in the car either. And so, but when you're observant and notice things, and everything is, I don't know, it's just doing for each other. I think that makes, because when you make it rules about jobs, or I mean, I'm sure that you have to communicate about stuff, but I don't know, it's just an attitude